What if the oldest copies of the Bible had been hidden in desert caves for nearly 2,000 years, waiting to be found? High above the shores of the Dead Sea, in the silence of the Judean wilderness, a discovery by chance revealed a lost world of prophecy, law, and mystery. These are the Dead Sea Scrolls. But who wrote them? Why were they hidden? In the desert, silence can feel eternal. The sun scorches the jagged cliffs of the Judean wilderness, and below, the Dead Sea lies still, shimmering with waters so dense and mineral-rich that nothing can live in them. The air is heavy, dry, and ancient. For millennia, this landscape has guarded its secrets in the cracks of stone and hidden caves carved by wind and time. And yet, beneath this silence, the desert was keeping one of the greatest treasures of human history, a library of ancient texts that would one day rewrite what we thought we knew about the Bible, Judaism, and the world in which Christianity was born. The story begins in 1946, or perhaps 1947, accounts differ slightly, with a Bedouin shepherd named Mohammed Eftib. Searching for a lost goat among the cliffs near Qumran, he tossed a stone into a dark cave to startle the animal. Instead of a goat, he heard the sharp crack of pottery breaking. When he entered, he found jars sealed for nearly 2,000 years, some containing scrolls wrapped in cloth and blackened by age. At first, the discovery seemed trivial to him. Old manuscripts had little value in the desert marketplace. Yet, within these jars lay texts that would transform archaeology and religious studies forever. Those first 7 scrolls included the Great Isaiah Scroll and the Community Rule. Among others, they were only the beginning. Over the next decade, between 1946 and 1956, archaeologists and Bedouin tribesmen uncovered fragments from 11 caves around Qumran. In total, tens of thousands of fragments were pieced together into about 900 manuscripts. The world would come to know them as the Dead Sea Scrolls. But what exactly are these scrolls? The Dead Sea Scrolls are the oldest known surviving manuscripts of the Hebrew Bible and similar Jewish writings. Dating from the 3rd century BCE to the 1st century CE, they include biblical texts we recognize today, deuterocanonical works, books later excluded from the Jewish canon, and writings unique to the Qumran community. The languages vary. Most are in Hebrew, some in Aramaic, and a few in Greek. The materials, too, differ: parchment, papyrus, and even copper. Together, they form a window into the Second Temple period, one of the most turbulent and transformative eras in Jewish history. The Qumran caves where the scrolls were hidden are themselves a marvel. Caves 1 through 11 all yielded manuscripts, but 3 stand out in particular. Cave 1, the cave of the first discovery, gave us the Great Isaiah Scroll, a complete text of Isaiah preserved across 2,000 years, word for word in places with the Hebrew Bible we know today. Cave 4 was by far the most productive, yielding about 90% of all the fragments. It was less like a library and more like a shattered archive, requiring painstaking reconstruction. Cave 11 contained the Temple Scroll, the longest of them all, offering a detailed vision of how the temple in Jerusalem might ideally be structured. Each cave tells a piece of the story, and each adds a layer of mystery. But who wrote these scrolls, and why were they hidden here? The most widely accepted answer points to a Jewish sect known as the Essenes. Ancient historians like Josephus and Pliny, the Elder, described the Essenes as a separatist group who lived in the desert, practicing communal living, strict purity laws, and waiting for God to bring about the end of days. This matches what the scrolls themselves reveal: rules for community life, prayers of thanksgiving, and apocalyptic visions of a final war between the sons of light and the sons of darkness. Yet not everyone agrees with the Essene theory. Some scholars argue that the scrolls may have been brought from Jerusalem by priests or refugees fleeing the Roman siege. Others even suggest sectarian offshoots we don't fully understand. Still, the Qumran-Essene connection remains the strongest candidate, and when you walk through the ruins of Qumran today, with its ritual baths, communal dining halls, and even a scriptorium with inkwells, it's hard not to picture scribes bent over parchment, carefully copying sacred words by lamplight. The scrolls themselves fall into several categories. The first, and perhaps most famous, are the biblical scrolls, copies of nearly every book of the Hebrew Bible, except Esther. These are not identical in every case. Some match the Masoretic text, the medieval Hebrew version still used in Jewish Bibles. Others align more closely with the Greek Septuagint, and some preserve variations seen nowhere else. This tells us something profound. During the Second Temple period, the biblical text was not yet fixed. It was living, dynamic, and fluid, circulating in multiple forms before eventually being standardized. Then there are the apocryphal and pseudepigraphal works, books like Enoch and Jubilees, which were well known in their time but later excluded from most biblical canons. These writings reveal the wide range of Jewish thought during the era. In them, angels descend, visions of heaven unfold, and stories expand upon familiar biblical figures. They remind us that the biblical tradition was broader and more diverse than what eventually survived in the canon. Perhaps most fascinating are the sectarian texts, which give voice to the Qumran community itself. The community rule, for example, lays out the strict regulations of their daily lives, initiation rites, penalties for disobedience, and an almost monastic devotion to purity. The War Scroll describes a cosmic battle where the faithful will triumph over evil. The Thanksgiving hymns speak with an almost psalm-like intimacy, filled with gratitude and yearning for God's deliverance. These writings pull us into the inner world of a group convinced they were living in the last days, chosen to preserve the covenant until God intervened. Then there are the unique scrolls, the Copper Scroll and the Temple Scroll. The Copper Scroll is unlike anything else. Engraved on sheets of copper rather than parchment, it reads like a treasure map, listing vast amounts of gold and silver supposedly hidden in various locations. Whether this treasure ever existed, or whether the scroll served as something symbolic, remains hotly debated. The Temple Scroll, by contrast, presents a detailed blueprint for the temple and its rituals, envisioning an idealized place of worship perhaps never built but deeply longed for. Piecing these fragments together has been a monumental task. The early photographs of 1948 captured what remained before further decay set in. By the 1950s, scholars were using infrared photography to reveal faded text invisible to the eye. In the 1990s, NASA's digital imaging technology was employed to enhance clarity even further. More recently, DNA analysis of parchment has helped match fragments that once belonged together, revealing connections across caves and scrolls. The Dead Sea Scrolls are not just texts, they are puzzles, and each advance in technology brings the picture into sharper focus. Yet preservation has been a constant challenge. The scrolls, made of fragile parchment, papyrus, and even copper, have suffered from centuries of deterioration. Poor storage in the early years only accelerated the damage. Today, conservationists work tirelessly to stabilize them, controlling temperature, humidity, and even light exposure, to ensure these delicate remnants survive for future generations. The journey from discovery to accessibility was not straightforward. In the 1950s, only a small circle of scholars had access to the scrolls, and publication moved painfully slowly. This secrecy fueled suspicion and conspiracy theories, with some claiming hidden texts about Jesus or suppressed revelations. The truth was less sensational, but no less important. The sheer difficulty of reconstruction, translation, and interpretation made progress slow. Only in the 1990s did widespread access finally arrive, with high-resolution images and digital projects opening the scrolls to scholars worldwide. Today, through initiatives like the Israel Museum's Digital Library, anyone can view them online, zooming in to the faded ink strokes written by hands 2,000 years ago. The significance of the Dead Sea Scrolls cannot be overstated. For biblical studies, they provide manuscripts over 1,000 years older than previously known copies, confirming the remarkable stability of some texts while also revealing intriguing variations. For Jewish history, they illuminate the diversity of Second Temple Judaism, showing us communities grappling with law, prophecy, and eschatology in different ways. For Christianity, they provide the backdrop against which figures like John the Baptist and Jesus preached. A world filled with apocalyptic expectation, messianic hopes, and debates about purity and law. The scrolls do not mention Jesus directly, but they set the stage for his movement, showing us the soil from which early Christianity grew. The story of the scrolls is not without controversy. Questions of ownership continue to stir political debate. Israel holds most of the scrolls today in the Shrine of the Book in Jerusalem, but Jordan and the Palestinian Authority dispute these claims, pointing to their discovery before 1967, when the West Bank was under Jordanian control. Meanwhile, the market has seen forgeries, modern attempts to pass off imitations as authentic Dead Sea Scroll fragments, some of which fooled even major museums. Yet despite these challenges, the core collection remains beyond doubt, authentic, ancient, and world-changing. Today, the scrolls are displayed in museums from Jerusalem to Amman, and temporary exhibitions travel the globe. Visitors stand in dimly lit halls, gazing at fragments no bigger than a palm, realizing they are looking at words written when Rome ruled Judea and Herod built his fortress palaces. These scrolls are fragile, but they carry the weight of history, and the story is still unfolding. New imaging technologies continue to uncover hidden letters, invisible ink, and overlooked details. Archaeologists still hope that more caves might yield discoveries. Scholars debate meanings, trace linguistic patterns, and search for connections. The Dead Sea Scrolls are not relics of the past. They are a living project, continuing to shape our understanding of ancient faith and the origins of traditions that endure today. In the end, the Dead Sea Scrolls are more than parchment and ink. They are voices carried across millennia. The prayers of a community seeking purity, the visions of prophets, warning of judgment, the rules of a sect waiting for redemption. They are echoes of ancient debates that still resonate in modern faith and scholarship. They remind us that history is not static. but alive, unfolding through discoveries that change how we see ourselves. What began with a shepherd tossing a stone into a cave has become one of the greatest archaeological stories ever told. A story of chance discovery, painstaking scholarship, and enduring mystery. And in that mystery, the Dead Sea Scrolls continue to invite us closer, urging us to listen to voices long silent, to step into a world both distant and strangely familiar, and to marvel at the fragile fragments that survive the desert to tell us their story.